The agricultural success of Eastern Flint corn, introduced by local women during the Mississippian culture period, had a transformative impact on indigenous societies in the southeastern United States. This new crop not only provided a reliable food source, but also enabled the formation of more intricate chiefdoms where dense populations could thrive across multiple villages. Corn became central to the lives of these communities, not only as a staple food, but also as a key element in their religious practices. One of the most important ceremonies was the green corn ceremony, a ritual of renewal and purification that marked the beginning of the harvest. This event, still practiced in some form by many Native American groups today, underscored the spiritual and communal significance of corn within these societies. Much of what we know about the pre-18th century Native American cultures, especially in the Southeast, comes from the records of Spanish explorers. These early accounts, though often filtered through the perspectives of Europeans, provide some of the only surviving documentation of the indigenous societies that existed before the arrival of widespread European colonization. The Spanish expeditions, particularly in the 16th century, were some of the first encounters between Europeans and the Native American peoples of the southeastern United States. One of the most notable expeditions was led by Hernando de Soto, a Spanish conquistador who journeyed through what is now known as Cherokee territory between 1540 and 1541. De Soto's mission, primarily focused on seeking riches and establishing dominance, also brought the Spanish face-to-face with the complex societies that inhabited the region. During his expedition, De Soto's group encountered various villages governed by Mississippian culture chiefdoms, including the Coosa chiefdom, which spanned parts of modern-day Georgia and Tennessee. The Coosa chiefdom was one of the largest and most powerful in the region, its influence stretching over many smaller villages and towns. The chiefdom was governed by a Miko chief, and its social and political structure was closely tied to the agricultural cycle, particularly the cultivation of corn. These societies had advanced agricultural systems, elaborate religious ceremonies, and extensive trade networks that connected them with other indigenous groups throughout the Southeast and beyond. De Soto's journey through this region was recorded by both Spanish chroniclers and later English colonists who encountered Native American societies that had been profoundly shaped by these early interactions. The Spanish expedition traveled through what is now Georgia and Tennessee, visiting villages that would eventually become part of the Muskogee Creek Confederacy. The Muskogee people, descendants of the Mississippian culture, would later play a significant role in the history of the Southeast, interacting with both European settlers and other indigenous groups, including the Cherokee. What is particularly interesting about De Soto's expedition is that much of the information gathered during this time remained untranslated or poorly understood until the 20th century. Only in recent decades have scholars been able to piece together a more complete picture of what the Spanish saw and experienced during their travels through the Southeast. The translations and analyses of these documents have shed light on the complex relationships between the various Native American tribes and chiefdoms in the region, as well as the devastating impact that European diseases, warfare, and colonization would later have on these communities. Despite the challenges of interpreting these early records, they remain invaluable for understanding the cultural and political landscapes of the pre-18th century Southeast. The accounts of De Soto and other explorers provide a rare glimpse into the lives of the people who lived in the region before European colonization reshaped the continent. They also highlight the rich cultural heritage of tribes like the Cherokee, Muskogee, and Catawba, who were direct descendants of the Mississippian culture. The Cherokee, for instance, while not directly mentioned in De Soto's records, were certainly impacted by the broader cultural and political shifts that followed these early European expeditions. As European influence grew, so too did the pressures on indigenous societies to adapt to new political realities, engage in trade, and defend their territories. The introduction of European technologies, diseases, and trade goods had a profound effect on the indigenous people of the Southeast, leading to both cooperation and conflict. As we continue to explore the history of the Cherokee and their neighbors, it becomes clear that their story is part of a much larger narrative of adaptation, survival, and resistance. The Cherokee, like many other Native American groups, were able to incorporate elements of European culture while maintaining their own traditions and identities. Yet, the records of early European explorers like De Soto also remind us of the challenges and disruptions that came with these encounters. The success of the Mississippian culture's agricultural innovations, the formation of powerful chiefdoms, and the religious significance of corn all played critical roles in shaping the societies of the Southeast. These elements, coupled with the early European encounters recorded by explorers, provide a window into a world that was both sophisticated and deeply connected to the land. Join us in the next episode of the Natives Journals as we delve further into the fascinating stories of indigenous cultures across the globe. Today's exploration of the Cherokees' ancient roots, agricultural successes, and the accounts of Spanish explorers offers a rich and detailed look at the history of one of America's most influential tribes. Stay tuned to the Natives Journals, where every episode is a journey through history, culture, and the enduring legacies of indigenous peoples. Consequently, contemporary English-speaking scholars have developed varying interpretations of the English colonists' understanding of historic Native American cultures, often influenced by the dominance of English colonial perspectives in shaping the historical narrative of the region. The preference for English colonial accounts led to the marginalization of Spanish sources, despite their earlier and often more detailed interactions with Native American societies, particularly in the Southeast. Spanish explorers like Hernando de Soto had recorded valuable information about the indigenous peoples they encountered, but this was largely overlooked by English settlers and historians who sought to establish their own version of the region's history. One of the key figures who sought to document the complexities of Native American life was John Howard Payne, an American writer and playwright best known for his work in preserving and recording Cherokee history. In what are now known as the Payne Papers, Payne provided a rare and valuable glimpse into pre-19th century Cherokee society. His documentation is considered one of the most detailed early records of the Cherokee people's social, political, and religious structures before their forced removal during the infamous Trail of Tears. In his papers, Payne described the traditional Cherokee social system, which was divided into two distinct but interconnected parts. The first was the priestly and hereditary structure, which held responsibility for religious duties, including healing, purification, and prayer. This structure was closely tied to the 7 Cherokee clans, each of which had its own representatives. The clan system was central to Cherokee identity and governance, influencing everything from marriage to dispute resolution. The representatives of the 7 clans worked to maintain balance within the community, ensuring that spiritual and cultural practices were upheld. The priestly leaders, often referred to as beloved men or beloved women, played a critical role in overseeing religious ceremonies and maintaining the spiritual health of the people. They were tasked with performing rituals that promoted harmony between the Cherokee and the natural world, as well as rituals of purification in times of sickness or after acts of war. Healing, both physical and spiritual, was a key component of their responsibilities, and their knowledge of plants and medicine was revered within the community. Simultaneously, Payne documented the existence of a younger group of men known as the Red Organization. This group was responsible for matters related to warfare and defense, reflecting the Cherokee people's understanding of the need to protect their communities. However, Payne emphasized that warfare was seen as a last resort among the Cherokee due to its association with pollution. In Cherokee cosmology, war was considered a polluting activity that disrupted the natural order and required extensive purification rituals to cleanse the warriors and the community afterward. The role of the Red Organization was not simply about engaging in battle, but also involved maintaining the boundaries of the community and defending against external threats when necessary. These younger men were trained in the arts of warfare and strategy, but their actions were always governed by a deep respect for the sanctity of life and the balance between peace and conflict. Warfare, when it occurred, was often conducted with the intent of restoring harmony, not conquest. This societal structure, as documented by Payne, reveals the balance of power within Cherokee society between the spiritual and the material realms. The priestly leaders ensured the community's spiritual well-being, while the warriors, under the Red Organization, protected it physically. Both groups were deeply interconnected, with each recognizing the importance of the other's role in maintaining the Cherokee way of life. What makes the Payne Papers so significant is that they offer a window into the Cherokee worldview before it was dramatically altered by European colonization. Payne's accounts, based on his interviews with Cherokee elders and leaders, capture a time when the Cherokee people still governed themselves according to their traditional systems. This structure began to change in the 19th century as the pressures of European settlement, land encroachment, and forced assimilation increased. Despite the richness of Payne's documentation, the reliance on English colonial sources over Spanish ones has led to a fragmented understanding of the region's early history. The Spanish explorers, who had encountered the ancestors of the Cherokee and other Southeast tribes much earlier than the English, had different interpretations and records of these indigenous peoples' customs and governance. Their interactions with the Mississippian culture and its successors provided a different lens through which to view the development of Native American societies in the Southeast. Unfortunately, these records were often neglected in favor of English accounts, which reflected the biases and interests of English colonists who were primarily focused on justifying their claims to native lands. The historical record, therefore, is a patchwork of perspectives, with gaps that scholars are still working to fill. Today, the Payne Papers remain one of the most valuable resources for understanding the traditional Cherokee societal structure. They offer an alternative to the English-dominated narrative, providing insights into how the Cherokee viewed themselves and their role in the world. The Cherokees' balance between spiritual leadership and warrior responsibilities, as documented by Payne, exemplifies their holistic approach to governance and life. The emphasis on peace and purification, even in times of war, speaks to their deeply ingrained belief in maintaining harmony with the natural world and within their communities. This approach contrasts with the often violent and expansionist tendencies of European settlers, whose own societies were built on the conquest and subjugation of others. As modern scholars continue to reinterpret and analyze the records of early European explorers, including those of both the Spanish and the English, a more nuanced picture of Cherokee society is emerging. The Cherokee were not simply passive victims of European colonization. They were active participants in shaping their own history, negotiating with settlers, and adapting to the changing world around them, while holding on to their cultural and spiritual traditions. Join us in the next episode of the Natives Journals, where we continue to explore the rich and complex histories of indigenous cultures across the globe. Today's look at the Cherokee's traditional social structure, as documented by John Howard Payne, offers valuable insights into a time when Native American societies in the Southeast were still flourishing, balanced by spiritual and warrior leadership.